What if I told you there is a shrub growing wild across the southeastern United States right now that contains caffeine, contains theobromine like chocolate, contains L-theanine like premium green tea, and delivers antioxidant levels that match or exceed a cup of specialty coffee, all from a plant that grows in your backyard, requires zero inputs, produces harvestable leaves every single year for decades, and costs you absolutely nothing after the initial planting? A plant that was the only caffeinated beverage in North America for thousands of years before European colonization. A plant that Native Americans consumed daily across an entire continent. That early European settlers recognized as a genuine coffee and tea alternative, and that was then deliberately buried by one of the most calculated acts of commercial suppression in botanical history. A suppression so effective that today most Americans walk past this plant in landscaping nurseries every spring, buy it as an ornamental shrub, plant it in their front yard, and never once realize they are living next to a free, domestic, antioxidant rich caffeinated beverage that could permanently eliminate their dependence on the $100 billion global coffee import system. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what this plant is, why it outperforms coffee on multiple health metrics, and why the coffee industry, the tea import industry, and the energy drink market all benefit from the 300-year silence that has kept this plant off your kitchen shelf. Hey there, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is where we expose the plants that make you completely independent. The crops that grow themselves, cost nothing after establishment, and replace products you currently import and pay for every single week of your life. And to my returning viewers, you legends, thank you for being here. You already understand that when an entire continent's native caffeinated plant gets buried while imported coffee and tea dominate the market, something deliberate happened. Always follow the money, and you always find the mechanism. Now, if you want to keep learning about plants that eliminate import dependency and replace expensive daily habits with free homegrown alternatives, subscribe right now. New content every week, and what's coming next is going to change your morning routine permanently. Let's get into these numbers. Let's start with antioxidants because this is where the comparison to coffee becomes impossible for the industry to acknowledge honestly. Coffee is consistently marketed as one of the richest antioxidant sources in the American diet, and that marketing is largely accurate. A standard cup of coffee delivers significant chlorogenic acid content, polyphenols, and antioxidant compounds that genuinely contribute to health. The coffee industry built a second wave of health marketing around this antioxidant profile after the initial caffeine messaging lost ground with health-conscious consumers. This plant contains comparable chlorogenic acid levels to coffee. It also contains rutin, quercetin, and kaempferol, flavonoids with documented antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties that coffee does not provide in significant amounts. Research published in the Journal of Food Science measuring total antioxidant capacity found this plant's brewed beverage rivals green tea and competes directly with specialty coffee. You are not choosing between health and your morning caffeine. You are upgrading both simultaneously. The caffeine profile is where this plant genuinely outperforms coffee for a large portion of the population. Coffee delivers 80 to 100 milligrams of caffeine per cup, with no buffering compounds, producing the rapid spike and crash cycle that makes many people dependent on multiple cups daily. This plant delivers 50 to 60 milligrams of caffeine per cup, combined with theobromine, the stimulant compound in dark chocolate that provides sustained, gentler energy without the sharp peak, and L-theanine, the amino acid in green tea that promotes calm focus and smooths the stimulant effect. The combination of caffeine plus theobromine plus L-theanine is why premium green tea is marketed as providing focused, jitter-free energy compared to coffee. This plant provides all three compounds simultaneously in a single brew. The energy it produces is smooth, sustained, and calm. No jitters, no mid-morning crash, no afternoon withdrawal headache. That combination of effects from a domestic backyard plant is something the energy drink industry, which charges $3 to $5 per can to replicate those compounds synthetically, cannot afford to have consumers discover they can grow for free. The plant is Yaupon holly, Ilex vomitoria, a native North American shrub in the holly family that grows wild from Virginia, down through the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, across the Gulf Coast through Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and into Texas. It is the only caffeinated plant native to North America. Every other source of caffeine consumed on this continent, coffee, black tea, green tea, yerba mate, guarana, all of it is imported. Every dollar spent on caffeinated beverages leaves North America and enters foreign supply chains. Yaupon is the single exception. It grows here. It is from here. It has been here for millions of years, and it was consumed as a daily beverage by Native Americans across the continent for at least 1,000 years of documented archaeological evidence before European contact changed everything. Here is the suppression story, because this is where Yaupon's history becomes genuinely extraordinary. When European explorers arrived in North America, they documented Yaupon consumption extensively. Native Americans brewed the leaves into a dark, bitter, caffeinated beverage called assi, or black drink, consumed daily and ceremonially across dozens of tribal nations. Early colonial settlers recognized immediately that this was a viable domestic alternative to imported tea and coffee. They brewed it, enjoyed it, and sent samples back to Europe for evaluation. In the early 1700s, there was genuine commercial interest in developing Yaupon as a trade commodity. A caffeinated beverage that grew wild across the American South, required no importing, and could be harvested freely represented a direct competitive threat to the British East India Company's tea trade and the emerging coffee import system. Then the scientific naming happened. When the Swedish botanist Carl Linnaeus formally classified the plant in 1753, he named it Ilex vomitoria, based on accounts of Native American ceremonial use where large quantities were consumed to deliberately induce purging as part of ritual cleansing. That was not typical daily consumption. That was a specific high-volume ceremonial use, documented and then strategically applied to the plant's formal scientific name to permanently associate it with vomiting in every academic, commercial, and public reference going forward. Whether that naming was directly influenced by commercial interests protecting the tea trade or was an independently unfortunate taxonomic decision, the effect was identical. No commercial investor wanted to build a beverage company around a plant named vomitoria. No consumer wanted to brew something called vomit plant for their morning cup. 300 years of commercial silence followed from a single naming decision. That is the most effective suppression in botanical history, and it required not a single law, not a single ban, and not a single dollar of enforcement. Just a name. Let me walk through exactly why the current beverage industry has no interest in reversing that silence. First, coffee is a $100 billion global industry built entirely on imported supply chains. Every American who grows Yaupon and brews it daily represents a permanent exit from that supply chain, not a reduction, a complete exit. The average American household spends over $1,000 annually on coffee and coffee products. Two established Yaupon shrubs provide enough leaf harvest for daily brewing year-round at zero ongoing cost. That is a $1,000 annual revenue stream per household that the coffee industry loses permanently the moment Yaupon becomes common knowledge. Second, tea imports represent another $20 billion market in North America alone. Green tea, black tea, white tea, herbal tea blends, all imported, all generating continuous revenue from a consumption habit that could be replaced by a domestic plant requiring no supply chain at all. Yopan brews identically to green tea. The flavor profile in lightly processed Yopan is genuinely comparable to quality green tea. The antioxidant profile matches it. The L-theanine content matches it. The caffeine level matches it. Switching from imported green tea to homegrown Yopan eliminates an entire category of grocery spending without any sacrifice in the experience. Third, the energy drink market, currently worth over $20 billion in the United States, exists to sell combinations of caffeine, theobromine, and taurine that replicate the compound profile Yopan provides naturally. The markup on those products is extraordinary. A can of energy drink containing synthetic versions of compounds available in a backyard shrub sells for $3 to $5. The manufacturing cost of those compounds is fractions of a cent per can. Yaupon eliminates the entire purchase category for anyone willing to grow 3 square feet of shrub and learn basic leaf processing. That is a direct threat to one of the highest margin consumer product categories in the beverage industry. Fourth, Yaupon cannot be patented, cannot be controlled, and cannot be made scarce. It spreads by seed and root sprout. It grows wild across millions of acres of the American South right now. It has been growing there for millions of years. No corporation can establish ownership of it. No company can force dependency on a branded version of it. You grow it, harvest it, process it yourself, and own your entire caffeine supply chain from soil to cup. That model is incompatible with every commercial beverage business model in existence. Fifth, Yaupon requires zero pharmaceutical or supplement support. Coffee dependency drives antacid sales for acid reflux, magnesium supplement sales for the mineral depletion chronic coffee consumption causes, adrenal support supplement sales for the cortisol disruption heavy caffeine use creates. Yopan's gentler, buffered stimulant profile does not generate those dependency cascades. Better for the drinker, worse for the supplement industry that profits from managing coffee's side effects. Now, let me give you the complete growing picture because within its native range, Yaupon is one of the most accommodating plants you can establish. Ilex vomitoria grows in zones 7 through 10 as a fully hardy evergreen perennial. It tolerates full sun to full shade, making it one of very few caffeinated plants that actually produces in a shaded yard. It tolerates clay soil, sandy coastal soil, poorly drained wet areas, and drought conditions once established. It is salt tolerant, which means coastal gardeners who struggle with ocean spray damage on other plants can grow Yaupon without issue. It is deer resistant, which in suburban and rural areas removes one of the primary threats to garden plantings. It grows 10 to 25 feet tall, unpruned as a small tree, and maintains itself as a 4 to 6 foot dense shrub when regularly harvested, which is exactly what leaf harvesting accomplishes naturally. Sourcing Yaupon is straightforward because it is already widely sold as an ornamental shrub in southeastern landscaping nurseries, typically without any mention that it is caffeinated or edible. Walk into a garden center in Georgia, the Carolinas, Florida, or Texas, and ask for Ilex vomitoria. They likely have it in stock right now, labeled as a native ornamental hedge plant, priced at $8 to $20 per container. You are buying a lifelong caffeinated beverage supply for the cost of a week of coffee. For gardeners in zones 5 and 6, cold hardy Yaupon varieties including Ilex vomitoria nana and selected cold hardy cultivars are being trialed and show survival in zone 6 with minimal protection. Container growing allows Yaupon culture in any climate, overwintered in an unheated garage or minimally heated space. The plant is so tough that container growing in marginal climates is genuinely viable with basic frost protection. Harvesting yaupon for brewing follows the same logic as green tea harvesting. Pick the young tender growth at branch tips, the newest 2 to 4 leaves, and the growing bud. These contain the highest caffeine and antioxidant concentrations. Harvest year-round from an established plant since yaupon is evergreen and produces new growth continuously. Avoid harvesting more than 1/3 of any branch's length at once to maintain plant vigor, though established plants tolerate aggressive harvesting well. Processing determines flavor profile. Fresh leaves brewed directly produce a light, slightly vegetal flavor similar to fresh green tea. Oxidized leaves, allowed to wilt and darken before brewing, develop deeper, more robust flavors moving toward black tea character. Roasted leaves, dried in a low oven at 250 degrees for 20 to 30 minutes until slightly brown, develop a toasted, nutty flavor that is the closest domestic equivalent to a light roast coffee in terms of flavor complexity. All three processing methods preserve caffeine content. Processing is simply a flavor choice. Brewing is identical to loose leaf tea. Use 1 to 2 teaspoons of dried yaupon per 8 ounces of water. Brew at 180 degrees, not boiling, for 3 to 5 minutes. Steeping too long or at too high a temperature increases bitterness, same as green tea. Cold brew yaupon by steeping a tablespoon of dried leaf in cold water overnight in the refrigerator. Cold brewing produces a smoother, less bitter beverage with the same caffeine content. Yaupon cold brew is one of the most approachable preparations for first-time drinkers transitioning from coffee. For beverage independence and preparedness, Yaupon's characteristics are exceptional. It is evergreen, providing harvestable material 12 months of the year in its native range. It requires no annual planting. It improves its harvest volume each year as the plant matures and branches more extensively. A single established yaupon shrub produces enough leaf material for 1 cup of brewed beverage, daily year-round with careful harvesting. 2 or 3 plants provide abundant supply, including drying and storing for preservation. Dried yaupon stores well in sealed containers for 1 to 2 years at room temperature, maintaining caffeine content and flavor. Here is what you need to do right now. If you are in Zone 7 or warmer, this is not a future project. This is a this season action. Visit a native plant nursery or southeastern garden center and purchase 1 or 2 Ilex vomitoria plants. Plant in any well-drained location. Let it establish through 1 growing season. Harvest a small amount of young leaves in your first fall. Process 3 ways: fresh, wilted, and lightly roasted. Brew each and taste the differences. Compare each cup to your morning coffee honestly. Notice the absence of the jittery edge. Notice the sustained focus without the 2-hour crash. Notice that you grew this. Notice that it cost you nothing beyond the initial $8 plant purchase and that it will produce for the next 30 years without any additional investment. The only caffeinated plant native to North America. Higher antioxidants than green tea, caffeine plus theobromine plus L-theanine in a single cup, grows in poor soil, shade, drought, and coastal conditions, evergreen year-round harvest, 0 annual inputs after establishment, sold right now in landscape nurseries as an ornamental shrub that nobody told you was caffeinated. That is yaupon. That is why it has been called by a name designed to repel consumers for 300 years. That is why the $100 billion global coffee import system has never once funded research into the domestic caffeinated alternative growing wild across an entire region of the country it profits from. Because a population that grows its own caffeine supply in the backyard is a population that has permanently exited the most habitual daily purchase the beverage industry owns. Brew it if you can grow it. Learn it if you can't yet. And understand that the plants they named to discourage you are almost always the plants your morning routine needs most. Until next time, stay prepared, stay independent, and remember the most powerful daily habits are the ones they never wanted you to grow yourself.